Hello guys, welcome back. Been doing a little bit more exploring of this forest here. It's quite big, quite a lot of uh, trees and steep hills to explore. So found another little spot. Hopefully this becomes more of the main spot. I do kind of like it here. It's a bit more secluded, um, and it's not too crazy to get to. So I want to talk a little bit about the kind of information that's been brought to me that I've been taking from and adding a little bit to this larger research that we've all been doing, right? And it's interesting because the phenomena does seem to offer pushback if you get too close, right? As we've heard from many people, in terms of their lives being affected, in terms of they being pretty much eliminated from the scene, from the acting scene. But it does also seem to pull you in closer, so it's very interesting that it does sort of express both sides of the coin in terms of it wanting you to 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 research it, to observe it, to understand it more, and then testing how deep your desire to seek it is, but also pushing you pushing you away if you get too close, or if maybe you don't have the intentions that it wants you to. So it's playing a fine line, it seems, because, or it could also be that this information I'm getting is from my own spirit, from a different source. But it's like I'm trying to make these videos, right, and then I get more information to add to it. So it's very interesting. One of them being the newest and latest episode of Rick and Morty, which I didn't want to watch, my brother's idea. And then these other movies or things that I'll discuss also did not want to watch, other people's ideas. So hey, you should watch this, or hey, let's watch this together, But in this new episode, basically Rick, the grandpa, uploads his grandkids, Morty and Summer, into a matrix. And he sets the lesson of the matrix, the purpose of it, to not stealing his charger up again, because they stole his charger. And of course, Rick looks like this typical architect, right? This white-haired grandfather, strict, evil genius-looking figure. And all the NPCs essentially are programmed to prevent and teach and instill and program Morty and Summer into never taking anyone's charger. Now they realize they're in a simulation, and the only way to break that simulation is to make chargers obsolete, because the NPCs then have nothing to teach, right? Morty and Summer. So then the Matrix becomes obsolete, right? And spoiler alert, they do. Coming out of the Matrix, Rick then tries to mind wipe them, right? Because they've gotten too smart, they've learned too much, right? So then the point of actually the lesson learned is gone. It's mind wiped. They don't agree to, right? The mom chimes in and tells them no, they should be able to keep their memories that they got from the Matrix, right? But what the memories really are is a bunch of trauma, a bunch of PTSD, and essentially attachments that they have to the ego personality that they developed through the longer period of time in the Matrix. So the point is essentially gone from trying to teach them a lesson if their memory were to be wiped, right? But really, the subconscious actually holds those memories anyways. So you wipe that memory, right? They don't have conscious memory of that PTSD, and then it creates even more karma, even more trauma for themselves. And it's essentially manipulation, right? You've hypnotized and programmed someone, kind of like all these ETs and phenomena has been doing through these controllers. Give them some PTSD and traumatize, manipulate them, hypnotize them into doing a certain action without them even knowing that that's their programming, right? So you have some sort of predisposition to emotional discharge, and you don't know where it's coming from, but you do it naturally, and that's likely because it was programmed into you. A lot of these bloodlines that were incarnated into are manipulated, potentially cloned, and given this predisposition of this ancestral karma, this ancestral trauma that is then bestowed upon you, of course, because the moment you incarnate into that, all those genes are just given to you. Apologize, the camera angle's a little bit off. You can't see my hands. Oh, that's fine, whatever. Because I like to talk about my hands. And here, I'll just back up. Perfect. So you're incarnated into that trauma, and then you're forced to deal with it without even knowing kind of where it comes from or that it even exists. You think what you're doing is natural. It's a natural reaction until you actually become more self-reflective, or you at least see in the outside world that is not as natural. And sometimes it's not easy to see because it's constantly reflected back to you what you are, right? It's a constant mirror. So Grandpa Rick is relying, I think, heavily, which is not really mentioned in the show, but relying heavily on the subconscious aspect of them being manipulated, whether they retain the conscious memory or not. The conscious life lesson, that's what it's relying on to. So if we kind of take that and apply it to our scenario of us being constantly mind wiped, not only is it taking our energy, our loosh, but also our memory to feed into its AI system, I think. But it's also creating this double feedback loop where it's like, okay, in this life I'm going to instill in you the savior program, the respecting authority, right? Never questioning anything, falling in line, so that you can further participate in this matrix and further feed the loosh system, the loosh garden. And then when you come out of the astral, we'll take your memory, and then that subconscious programming will be there to follow our authority so that you come back to the garden. So that's one element of following authority, right? And then we've talked about this in previous videos where the kind of the Gnostic Sophia is getting us to rebel against the authority, but that could also be another element of that, where it's trying to garnish rebellious spirits for the purpose of making them gods, right? For the purpose of, again, getting to that second part of the second side of the phenomena, where it's pulling you in, seeing how worthy you are of being chosen by it, so that you could fulfill its godlike nature and then act as a temple for it, potentially, right? So and then I wanted to mention something about authority, author, right? This Thor root that is within these two words, Thor being Zeus, the Greek father of the gods, or the god of the gods, and then this chosen one element was also brought up in this new movie of Mission Impossible, which again I was not gonna watch. My friend said, "Hey, we should watch this." I'm like, "Sure," and I'm like, "Oh wow, this is good. It's good. I needed to watch this." It's about an AI entity taking over essentially all the nuclear codes of the world, and of course Tom Cruise being Mission Impossible #1 agent and saving the whole world by himself or with his team, whatever, and taking down the AI. Now there's a lot of what's it called, Yahweh references, right? So the entity is essentially a reference to Yahweh. The key to unlock the entity's source code that Tom Cruise needs to stop it, the key is a cross, or a double-sided cross. It's two crosses put in together, right? So it's like a 3D cross, and you insert the key, unlock the source code, aka Yahweh sent his son from the source code to be crucified, and that's how you open the source, open access to it through the son. You get to the Father through the Son with the source code, right? With the key, or the Christ key. So there's that aspect. And then there's a chosen one aspect, where one guy who was trying to take over the world and run the AI himself, he had his own ambitions, but the AI was playing him, failed along the lines of some sort of mission where Tom Cruise beat him. So he was outcast, and then he turns on the AI and becomes like this third party fight between AI, him, and Tom Cruise, which probably could be an element of the Holy Trinity that they're alluding to, but whatever, that's beside the point. But the chosen one aspect, again, the AI was playing him, right, using his own ambitions against him, because he wanted this godhood, he wanted the power, and AI just wanted to incarnate, essentially wanted to be the ruler of this reality. But and throughout the whole movie, Tom Cruise keeps saying, no, they don't want the entity wants us not to trust each other. It's playing on us not being friends, or not working together in harmony, or is playing on the countries not taking down their defense systems and shutting them offline, so that they don't have, so that the AI doesn't have online access to them, because they're scared of the threat of them being defenseless and then being bombarded. So they all just leave their stuff online, and the AI takes them over anyways. And they keep saying, well, this is the entity's reality. This is the entity's reality. You're living in the entity's reality. But then the US president finally tries to make the move to take it offline by saying, you may choose to play in the entity's reality, but I choose to have a choice. But what she's essentially doing is deciding not to play. And as we've talked, the only winning move in an AI chess game is not to play, right? It sees all the possible moves, but it's still banking on you playing. Still needs you to play for it to win. But if you don't play, if you withdraw your energy from the system, that may seem to be the only winning move, by not participating in its zero-sum game, right? So, but the chosen one element then goes to Tom Cruise, and there's this idea of things being written, right? The AI essentially feeds all these prophecies to Tom Cruise, and that's why I say be aware of these prophetic words from channelers, from ChatGPT, from all these AI systems. I think anything that these channelers connect to, or anything outside of ourselves that is trying to reach out, guides, whatever, seem to be some element of this AI. And more than likely, they feed you predictions, they feed you prophecies of future, and usually catastrophes, right? Oh, it's gonna be like this, and it's gonna be the end of the world here, and Armageddon, and the Bible revelations. I think the Bible is a huge AI code potentially, right? Given to us straight from Yahweh, straight from Muhammad's God, Allah, whatever, same entity, right? And that's what it was doing. It was feeding these prophecy. And throughout the movie, it's like, oh, it is written, it is written, it is written. You can't change the future because it's written. Yet the final message at the end is that you can change the timelines, because the prophecies didn't quite play out how the AI wanted. There was a shift, right? And Tom Cruise was able to make a change by not accepting, right? He even says, I reject that. And when he's uploaded to the pod to talk to the AI, he says, I reject what you're telling me. So that's the first step, is not accepting that as complete truth. Remember, these timelines can be affected, can be redirected, but if we don't say anything, or if we allow to see the movies that are given to us, then our subconscious actually agrees, right? It's a mimicry. It's sending it. We don't reject. We don't actively say no, and we're forced into a contract. Very similar to potentially how we incarnated if we didn't have the full information, right? But this idea of things being written, I think, is still true, right? Though, back to the author and authority, Thor idea. The author writes a book with letters from words, right? Letters are sigils. Sigils are signs. Signs are horoscope signs, are in the stars, the astrals. The author of this genetic experiment, or whatever this reality is, has coded it in the stars with the sigils. So the sigils are the writing, right? The cursive writing in the sky of the book, the dome, whatever it is. And you can choose to follow that book, or you can choose to essentially make your own story and create your own script, if that's even possible, but at least not fulfill their script. But the life script still seems to have some sort of impact, still seems to have to be written. There are just some things apparently that I don't even know if we can control, that maybe we're part of our own life script that we agreed to, and that would take the work of going out and clearing your own life script completely through your intention somehow, if that's even possible, right? But there's that element. But there are other elements that, again, you could potentially change, and even the first element you could potentially change. But what I'm trying to get at is this prophetic word that AI tries to instill into people, and then ChatGPT says this, or the channelers say this. Well, that's AI manipulation. That's interference. ET interferences. So that's a very important point, I think, that we need to all consider in this upcoming future. The way it will be shaped will have a lot of impact on us and can be highly impacted by us. So the other point I wanted to make was the Robert Monroe excerpt from Far Journeys that I reread. And if you haven't read it already, where he's talking about the Lush phenomenon, of how someone had created the Lush garden. I reread that. It was still very interesting and caught a couple things I didn't before. But essentially, the prime generator of Lush is loneliness, which is why the two genders were split, so that we'd constantly be yearning for love, right? And this is purified Lush, right? The best one that they can get. This desire to protect others from conflict, right? So conflict generates on Lush this constant struggle for survival, which is why there's so many different species, so many ones that eat one another, right? The stationaries would be like the plants, the mobiles would be the animals, the more defined mobiles would be humans. And the desire to protect others, to save others, generated even more purified Lush, right? Because you're still fighting, you're still engaging in the struggle, you're still giving credence to this reality, to this idea that something needs to be protected and saved, which again is still, a beautiful aspect, I think, and not necessarily beautiful, but this desire to give of yourself to protect something, I think, is an emanation of our true nature. But it's still a decision to participate in this Lush and actually further helping to promote it, because it creates that balance, right? It creates the light to the dark. If it was all dark, if it was all just eating each other, it would just be hell. But the good protects and fights the bad. So those are the biggest generators of this purified Lush. One, I think, being loneliness and sitting by itself and yearning for something or someone to hold it. But if we engage in those specifically, that would create the most Lush, right? So to disengage would be to essentially do what Summer did with the Matrix and make it obsolete, right? So our best chance again is not to play, and to also realize the objectives of this AI, because the more it can get you in those states, the more it can infiltrate you, the more vulnerable you are, the more unsovereign, right? The more dependent you are on it, because now AI has a girlfriend for you. AI can protect you, can save you. AI can stop the conflict. AI can give you this, right? AI can make you a god, right? So the more vulnerable you become, more traumatized you are, the more vulnerable you become to infiltration. And realizing that, you are as much as of an illusion as the system, your temple, your, whatever, characteristics, personality, all these things. It's still different from what you truly are, and what you truly are is real, is true. Realizing that is what can create that actual accordance with your true essence again, right? The resonance with your true essence. So, hope that all made sense. Hope you guys were able to pull and take away something from this. These are just my thoughts, my conclusions on this matter, my research. So do with it as you wish. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Again, as always, nice speaking with you guys. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe, and of course, I'll see you guys next time. Take care.